Hello everybody and welcome to Letterboxd Book Club. My name is Claire.
And I'm Mackenzie.
And today we are discussing Quicksilver by Callie Hart, a TikTok popular sensation.
Alright, I will read the blurb to start us off. Do not touch the sword. Do not turn the key. Do not open the gate. In the land of the unforgiving desert, there isn't much a girl wouldn't do for a glass of water. 24-year-old Saeris Fane is good at keeping secrets. No one knows about the strange powers she possesses, or the fact that she has been picking pockets and stealing from the Undying Queen's reservoirs for as long as she can remember. But a secret is like a knot. Sooner or later it is bound to come undone. When Saeris comes face to face with death himself, she inadvertently reopens a gate between realms and is transported to a land of ice and snow. The Fae have always been the stuff of myth, of legend, of nightmares, but it turns out they're real, and Saeris has landed herself right in the middle of a centuries-long conflict that might just get her killed. The first of her kind to tread the frozen mountains of Evilia in over 1,000 years, Saeris mistakenly binds herself to Kingfisher, a handsome Fae warrior who has secrets and nefarious agendas of his own. He will use her alchemist's magic to protect his people, no matter what it costs him, or her. Death has a name. It is Kingfisher of the Ancient Gate. His past is murky, his attitude stinks, and he is the only way Saeris is going to make it home. Be careful of the deals you make, dear child. The devil is in the details.
Ooh, thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Kenzie, go.
I always enjoy a fantasy book. I always enjoy the Fae. I always enjoy, like enemies to lovers situation. I enjoy stories like this. I had a good time.
Good.
I don't think it lived up to like the hype of the TikTok. But that is okay. By and by, it's alright.
Love that for you. Is that it?
What about you? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, look, I'm just like on the fence about it as well. To me, it felt like a culmination of many other fantasy stories that we've read in the past couple of years, and that familiarity and that recognition just led me to more of a disappointment type of route, because at this point nothing in this fantasy enemies to lovers sort of genre in itself comes across as original these days. But I was locked in when I was reading it because I'm always intrigued with the fantasy genre and trying to figure out what the world's like and how the world operates. So in that sense, I was locked in, I was in it, I was just, kind of enthralled by the world. But ultimately, when certain story elements or character elements or characteristics popped up, I'm like, well, all right, we've seen this before in the 5 other books we've read, and this seems familiar, and I was surprised by the ending and like how that came about, but is that just because it's that last 150 pages where everything just turns to chaos? But I had fun reading it, but I didn't really know what to expect about it either, and I would agree with you that I don't think it lives up to TikTok hype.
I feel like in the realm of world building, you have to make it interesting, and I just wasn't interested. And in saying that, I DNF'd this book.
Hey, I was waiting for the ball to drop. Good on you. What point did you DNF?
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, tell me.
I made it to the first page and I noped out.
God damn.
Okay, let me tell you. So you need to tell me what happens.
Bitch.
Which is so interesting because I, the other day, was me telling you about fanfic, so now you can tell me about a real book. Okay, no, this is the thing. I opened the book and immediately all the pronunciation guide, I was like, nah. I was like, I'm not doing this.
I love it.
Everything was so stupid. Oh, not stupid. Stupid is such a stupid word to use. Sorry, I take
it's
that
too
back.
harsh. It's too harsh.
Yeah, everything was just like
absurd.
Oh, yes. I don't know the right word.
Ridiculous.
I guess there's artistic, license, but then there's also taking it too far. Because usually, and I'll always come back to like Sarah J. Maas or whatever, like Selena and Kale and Dorian, whatever. Like you kind of know how they're pronounced anyway, And then in the pronunciation guide, it just kind of helps you out. But when the pronunciation guide, like, you have these words that are a jumble of fucking nonsense and they don't even look like a word, and then you have the pronunciation guide, and honestly, the pronunciation guide was fucking awful as well, like the words that they were meant to be. I noped out of it. I was like, I'm not doing this because... I was like, I can only put myself through so much torture, you know? And I just wasn't going to do it because it's absurd. It's truly absurd. And I understand that you need to have, like, originality and tenacity to build your own world. And, you know, power to you. Power to anyone who can write their own book because it's good on you. But, I mean, fucking hell. It's like they put, you know, like, just sounds into a hat and picked out random sounds at a time and put them together and was like, oh, great, this is going to be a word.
Or just fantasy name generator on Google.
Yes. Because, let me open it. I'll open it.
Oh, I've got it up already because I know I'm going to need it.
Oh.
To be fair, one of the words or one of the names is mentioned like only 3 times. And it's not even relevant, really.
Well, it doesn't even matter because I don't fucking know who anyone is.
You know what? This is going to be a fun game. All right, you pronounce all the words.
Okay.
But you pronounced our female main character's name correctly.
Hell yeah. So, Saeris.
How about you name the word and I'll tell you like who they are. So Saeris, yes, is our female main character.
Rusarius.
He's just a fucking librarian.
Okay. Nam Shakrai.
a dead dragon.
Ishabal.
A young witch.
Belicon.
Evil king of the Fae. Or king of like the main Fae area.
Okay. O'Shaleth.
That's Fish's nickname to Saeris.
Deus.
He is a vampire second to the big bad evil vampire.
Okay. Daenthus.
Oh, that's the ancient Fae royal family.
Lorith.
That's one of Fish's friends.
Balkida.
That's the witch clan.
Taylina.
She's a healer.
Danya.
One of Fish's warriors.
Okay, places. Zilvarin.
Yep, that's where Saeris is from.
Velia. So I said that right as well.
That's the Fae area.
Corlish.
That's Fish's hometown.
Sinazroth.
Right now? That's the vampire, the Dead Wasteland.
Gilarian.
I don't remember.
Lycian.
This place has not been mentioned. Lycian was not used. Lycian was like an old queen.
Okay. Montreath.
That's a place in the Dead Wasteland, I'm pretty sure.
And Omnimerin.
I swear to God, I've not seen that word ever in this book.
Cool.
I'm sorry, like my brain is really like muddled right now, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right most of the time. Good on you. Good pronunciation. Hey, I respect that rant. Because sometimes it's a bit too much these days.
I opened it up and I saw the first one. I was like, nah.
But yeah, it is funny in that sense because you have like a name like Belkin, and then you have one of the evil vampires is named Malcolm. Like, like how can you be so different, you know? But anyway, all right, this is gonna be fun. When I say vampire, they're actually high fae vampires, so they're like a little hybrid situation going on. Yep, interesting choice. All right. Oh Jesus, where do I begin?
Who's Quicksilver? Why is it called Quicksilver?
Quicksilver, the silver used to create portals to travel between realms.
Okay, so Quicksilver isn't a person.
It's not a person. It is a thing. So,
well, that's deceptive already because on the front cover there's a sexy man and it says Quicksilver.
But if you look at the front cover, under the sexy man's eyes, it's silver. And because he has some Quicksilver in him. Quicksilver in itself is like its own element.
Oh, I see. He's crying.
That's a better description. It's its own element, though it is actually silver. It can be controlled. Think of it like Aaron in Guild, how she can control gold. It's just Saeris can control, or she learns that she's able to will the Quicksilver and everything, and it's a whole thing.
Oh, cool.
All right, so Saeris, just to get you up and running, she is a young thief in this world. There's a whole map as well. I'm pretty sure. No, there's no map of the world, is there?
Where else have we seen thieves recently?
I mean, a lot of these main characters end up being thieves in squalor, in the poorest part of town. Anyway, so she steals from the Guardian, and the Guardian is Queen Mandra's elite soldiers and stuff, and...
You are now one of my elite employees.
Yes.
You have been promoted.
Pretty much. So she steals one of his, like, gauntlets, because she could sell it off for money, etc., etc. And Saeris also has a brother who is annoying as hell. He is such a liability.
I saw that on the reviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah, why is her brother so annoying?
Yeah, anyway, he's a whole thing. He's like a gambler. He doesn't really listen. He just causes trouble or makes trouble for Saeris to clean up. And it's just not great when you're already kind of being hunted by the Guardians anyway. So he doesn't help the situation. He doesn't lay low. So yeah, she steals a gauntlet for money. Eventually has to kind of hide it. So she gives it to her brother Hayden to kind of hide it. But he ends up getting caught with it, and being caught with the Queen's property essentially means death, and so she sacrifices herself. Because they think he stole it because he had it on him.
Oh yeah, fair enough. A fair assumption to make.
Yeah. And then she ended up killing a bunch of Guardians because they're trying to take both of them, and, you know, she's posed as a real threat, so now the captain believes that, you know, she could potentially stolen from him, and yeah, it's a whole thing. So, yeah, she meets the Queen Madra. She has been ruling for, like, thousands of years, but she's human. But she's human, allegedly, and it's been a very sussy-ussy. You will find out how that works.
And no one questions this?
Well, she's a bit of a dictator. And, okay, so, yeah, their society, their landscape, they're in a desert. And so she controls a lot of, like, the food and like, the water rations and stuff. And the way this society is built, it's like a wheel, like, where there's outer layers and inner layers, and it's, like, all walls. Each section of that is called a ward. I think each represents a different level and hierarchy of society. So, okay, cool. Saeris is from the 3rd ward, but that's been known as, like, the poorest ward and, like, a plague ward. It's known as, like, the quarantined ward. So they're there in squalor, and you're either sick or dying. So she grew up there, blah, blah, blah. 1 second, let me just see what I do. This is such a big book as well, dude. It's like, there's so much detail.
Just tell me the main plot points.
I mean, anyway,
yeah. Rant.
Well, she talks to Queen Madra, and she's sentenced to death.
Fun.
Saeris is, as always. She's in the dungeons. She has a battle with Captain Harren. He goes on a bit of a weird sort of evil guy monologue in a weird way, but you're just a lackey.
Why must we always monologue?
They always do. So she's in this, like, dungeon.
Honestly, way more people would be dead if evil people just didn't monologue and just got to killing.
If they just shut the fuck up for 1 second, they would get more done.
Respectfully, shut the fuck up.
Exactly. Respectfully, just kill me. So there was, like, a sword in the marble, and it's been there for a very long time. Like, her and the captain have a fight, blah, blah, blah. He stabs her. She takes the sword out, and the sword is this key. It unlocks this, like, silver pool. And so that opens up. And there's a little bit of silver that's attacking, like, that's become its own sentient little being, and it's, like, attacking Captain Harren. And then through the pool rises a male. She thinks he's death, and he takes her through the pool, and she wakes up in another world. And so she's in the Fae place. Evelia. So I'm switching back and forth between the pronunciations because I don't want to come across as being too lazy and not trying to pronounce them, you know?
That's okay.
Anyway, she thinks, he's death, and death has come to take her, whatever. And he puts a special necklace over her to help heal her and protect her, which is a pretty cool element.
Nice.
Alright, hang on. I wasn't prepared to talk about this. Like, as a solo person, you know, it's hard. Anyway.
You made me talk about fanfic
but you're so good at talking about it, though.
You send me all your notes, and I'll talk about the book.
Hey, next time. No, but that pool turned out to be like a Quicksilver pool. Like, she was able to harness and open the element and go through. And that portal had been open, and once one portal...
I do appreciate that she's 24.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
How about alright, so yeah, the dude is revealed to be Fisher, King Fisher,
Okay.
the guy who saved Ebbet in that moment. Anyway, I want you to
See,
guess
that just makes me think of fish.
I know, right? I want you to guess how old he is.
He is...
In Fae
Like,
years.
is he Fae?
Yeah,
In
he's
Fae
Fae.
years? 530.
Oh, that's cute.
Oh no,
He's
3092.
Oh, not that old, but 1,733 years old.
Okay, I take it all back because, like, I already have a problem with 500 years old and 18-year-olds, but here we have a 1,000-year-old and a 24-year-old. Also, if you could live forever, sorry, I'm just gonna cut in here so that I'm actually talking as well about things.
Okay.
Like, if you could choose how long to live for, like, and you get to stay in like your young body or whatever, how long do you think is long enough? Because 1,000 years, like, that's too much time.
It depends what you need to get done, you know?
But like, literally everyone you know dies.
But you make new friends and they die anyway. It's just a revolving circle. I don't know. I can't put a number on it because it's something I'm never going to experience. So like, how am I supposed to comprehend and put a number on it? Do you?
Yeah, like if you could see the rise and fall of like the technological age.
Yeah, it'd be scary.
Yeah. That's how long I want to live for. Then I want to see the fall of the technological age. I want to see the reset back to like carving things into stone again.
Like primitive years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to shit in a bucket and throw it out my window.
What a goal to have. What a dream. Do you have a number in mind for you, or just I suppose the end of like a reset?
1,000. I'll do 1,000.
Saeris is in the Feyland. She meets a friend called Everlane. She occupies the place as well. So obviously Saeris is very confused about where she is, and she's very confused of the turn of events that's just happened. So she meets Everlane, this young-looking Fae woman, though she is like 1,700 odd years old as well. Actually, alright, I'm so nervous. I don't know why. Essentially, she rocked up in the king's palace, in the Fae king's palace, Belican's palace, and so she has to meet with him because there's this whole thing of how can this person understand the Quicksilver and everything, because to them she's just an ordinary...
control it.
Exactly, and to them she's just like an ordinary human, like something has gone amiss, like how did this happen? So yeah, Saeris is having her little meeting with the king, going through some things, and then suddenly bursting through the door we have Kingfisher, surrounded by guards. He's like a ravenous sort of animal. He's like out of his mind, very feral-like. He comes with his own issues and kind of war crimes in a way. He has allegedly burnt down a whole town full of Fae folk, and he's like accosted for that and been deemed like a traitor to the Fae realm because of that. Anyway, that's all happening, and then Everlane realizes that Saeris has the necklace, and so they give it back to Kingfisher, and it eases his mind. It draws the insanity away, which is really cool. That those sort of like magical elements are very fun in this book if you had read it, but it's okay. That's okay. And then like a deal has been made between Belican, Quicksilver, and not Quicksilver, Jesus, Fisher and Saeris, and it's that Fisher has to go to the front lines because there's a whole other Fae war versing these undead vampire folk, right? So Fisher, he's sent back to the front lines, and then Saeris has to work on her Quicksilver work. Like, she has to figure out how to control it and see if she can, like, reawaken it again. Because in the moment of duress, you know how a lot of female main characters with unknowing powers, you know, in height of emotion, you know, their powers seem to work. So in that situation, it seemed like a one undone. So now Saeris has a bit of homework, and she has to learn all she can about Quicksilver so she can open another portal again. So that's the whole thing. Actually, no, and Fisher actually has to work with her for a while before he gets sent to the front lines.
Okay, and now just skip to the end.
Skip to the end. I mean, may as well.
Then like, I have a rant.
Yeah. There's a lot of, like, travelling to towns.
Well, I don't have a rant, but I have, like, a conversation.
Okay. There's a lot of travelling to towns, and at this point I thought maybe the plot was a little bit lost, because Fisher just really takes Saeris on a little adventure with him. And Belkin just kind of lets it happen. And, like, they're gone for more than a week. And the deal was for a week for her and him to work together before Fisher leaves for the front lines. But, like, it's as if he's just taken her on an adventure for months, trying to figure out more than this Quicksilver stuff. Because at the same time, she's learning about the Feywild from Everlane and learning all the gods and all the Fey etiquette and customs and all that type of stuff, because, you know, being a human, she doesn't know if she's offending anybody by asking weird questions and stuff. There's a lot of strong Fey genre descriptions in this book too, which I really appreciated, because they hold typical Fey behaviors of not being able to lie, kind of come across as a bit more ruthless and more strong-willed than a human, and humans to them are perceived as weak and fragile because they don't have, you know, the benefit of a long life, and they're just inherently inferior in every way. And that's always sort of brought up as well. So that's cool in that aspect, that almost traditional Fae sort of writing and descriptions are used here by Callie, which is great. And then I suppose, in a way, their relationship sort of ensues.
Mm-hmm. Is there smut?
Yeah, there is a bit of smut, but it's, I don't know, stock standard. I don't know, I'm very desensitized to it these days, so there are people who will describe it as, like, really amazing and all that stuff, but to me it's just, like, stock standard. I can send you passages if you want.
Sure. This is going to circle back into my conversation, so I did bring it up for a reason. But... Okay,
that's okay. And it also turned out that Fisher had been exiled for 110 years because of what he did to that, like, Fey village. He burnt it all to the ground.
What's 110 compared to the other 900?
It's a lot, apparently. And we learn more about Everlane as well. Turns out Everlane and Fisher are brother and sister. They both share a mother, but Everlane's father is Belkin. And so it turns out that Fisher's father was blamed for the portals, or the Quicksilver portals, being stilled because he was sent to the human world. I don't know, on some mission, and at the same time the portals closed while he was there, so it was that presumption that it was his fault, and inherently Fisher was blamed for everything in regards to Belkin, because Belkin just hated his guts, because in this world as well, it's hard for Fae to have children, and yet their mother managed to have 2. And it's just the whole thing that I think, again, in Fae monarchical society, you know, they're always on about their heirs and their male heirs, and the fact that Fisher's mother already had a male before she married Belkin, it was just like a whole thing. So a bastard son that's illegitimate, you know, very weak in his eyes. Okay, so and then at this point there's just a lot of, like, experimenting, because Saeris is trying to make more relics and stuff as well. So the pendant around Fisher is what protects him from travelling within the Quicksilver, right? When he was younger, there was a time where he didn't have protection on, and that's when Quicksilver kind of consumed him and kind of fucked him up, and the healers were able to help him, except small remnants of Quicksilver still remain in him. And every now and then he has bouts of madness or insanity or in pain because of it, because it's driving him crazy. And although the pendant does protect him, I think over, like, a long ass fucking time, it just periodically gets worse to the point where he will be succumbed to it. But so there are bouts of that in this book, and of course with this type of relationship, Saeris comforts him, and afterwards they have a good bang. So I love those sort of elements. All right, you know what? What's more to this book that you should know? You know, true mates, because they're of course have to be true mates.
Because it's always a human and a fae.
Yes. And there are, like, tattoos that signify that as well, special markings. And Saeris has a lot more than the average fae, despite being human. And that's a whole thing. And then that's all started clicking together. So other than, like, true mate tattoo bonds that she has a god's blessing or god binding tattoo markings as well. And, like, there's a whole thing, like, there are gods and, like, fate interruptions as well and all that stuff. It's very, like, From Blood and Ash-ish as well, in that sense. Or maybe even A Shadow in the Ember, where, you know, it's like a timeline, there's, like, a destiny, everything that's meant to happen is meant to happen in the name of destiny, but there's also an element of balance that needs to be had. And of course, them two being mates, in a way, it upsets the balance because no matter what, they're meant to be together and someone's somehow meant to die. But anyway, it's a whole fucking thing. And at a point, we meet, I guess, Malcolm. He's like he's an old high fae vampire, and that is a whole thing in and of itself. That ancient true family, fae family, royal family, sorry, they created this blood curse that caused fae to be able to become vampires. And so Malcolm was like the original vampire. There was a cure that fae could take to not eventually become a vampire, and Fisher had to take it and all that type of stuff. But there are fae folk who didn't take it, so then they're just like, yeah, fae vampire, almost hybrids.
Fun.
There's a couple of scuffles between them and his vampire minions called feeders. Saeris also helps because she is a known fighter as well. But this is where, yeah, I think the plot got a little bit lost on me, because we spent a lot of time of them traveling to different places and them having these skirmishes and not a lot of alchemy sort of work and not a lot of actually practicing Quicksilver. When it did happen, it wasn't very long, or there's only really short sort of chapters and moments. And then when she did get the hang of it, she got it pretty quickly. And also, to add on top of everything, there's a whole silver metal shortage, which makes everything really hard anyway. Because we learned that, I think it was either Mandra or Belkin, either way, they're all hoarding it, because I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Which is cool. Other parts of this book, I don't know, characters like their very OP magical god swords. Blessed by the gods, channeling old ancient magic, that's a whole thing. Some would argue that there's a lot of between Saeris and Fisher, because he needs her to fulfill whatever he needs to succeed in his goals, and she really just wants to go home, so there's a lot of back and forth. They make a bargain with each other. He was supposed to bring back her brother into this world, but he picked up one of her old flames called Carrion. I don't know if I said the name right, but he becomes kind of like a little comedic sidekick, where for a time it felt like there's no reason why he should be there, because he's just there to make sarcastic comments and just state the obvious things and just really annoy Saeris. So I really didn't appreciate or value his presence, because he really attributed to nothing until the end, when there's this grand revelation. And as soon as we learnt about the vampires, or the fae being able to become vampires, that's when I thought that Queen Mandra could have been a vampire, because that would explain why she's somewhat human, but also thousands of years old. And at one point, Fisher and Saeris have a little bit of a hate fuck sesh, because they're just like, I don't know, it's just the stock standard, like, enemies to lovers, but it's almost like you don't really believe it. But because they say the words out loud as the character, it's what the character feels, so you have to somewhat believe it. I don't know. Then there's just extra, like, fantasy elements, because so Fisher has almost like in Guild with King Rot, I forget his first name, how he has his... Oh my god. I know, right? Anyway, you know how he has his band of people?
I feel like it's like Slade or something.
Yeah, Slade, that's it.
Yeah.
And I think you remember how Slade has his band of specifically named warriors, that there's like 4 or 5 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like this with Fisher. He has like 8 bands of soldiers connected to him. They've called this particular name, but there's this one guy who they're best buds with, and that's Lorith, actually. And it turns out that Fisher, has shared part of his soul with him. So if Fisher died before this guy, then he had to wait until Lorith died in order to to have peace, have eternal peace, because his soul is lively with someone else. Like, it's a whole extra.
My God.
I know, it's just the whole
extra... Like, this sounds like there's so much going on, but also, like, nothing going on.
It is, and it all revealed at the end, and it all makes sense, but it's just, ugh. But anyway, every time Saeris and Fisher fucks, Saeris develops some tattoos, which is really cool, which I guess is just strengthening their mating bond and all that type of stuff. So we get some Quicksilver like progress. They are sentient beings almost once they are sort of awakened or in liquid form, and Saeris develops the ability to be able to like talk to it, and they have like multiple discussions, and then Saeris forges some swords, and then the Quicksilver itself have some stipulations in order to like channel old magic or to even actually work properly. Like they demand songs and jokes and all that type of thing, and then they determine whichever warrior is worthy of wielding them, etc., etc. It's a lot. It's, yeah.
What is happening?
I'm probably not explaining it well. You should have let me know.
Okay.
I would have been able to write a more concise, quick notes. And also at one point, Saeris has a conversation with the Quicksilver, specifically inside Fisher. And because at a time she was tempted to kind of pull it out of him, but they are bound, they are one together.
Is she like, well, can you stop making him crazy?
No, unfortunately. Yeah, they are bound, they are one. They consider him as a weapon, and I just think because it's just to kill the vampires, because the vampires die with Quicksilver-style blades and stuff.
Okay.
And plus, he's just a very strong Fae warrior, so why wouldn't you want to utilize him? There's a confrontation with more of the vampires. They just kind of come back and forth. They come as a threat, and then they piss off. But this time, they have Evelyn to use and bait against Fisher to force him to make a decision. Because everything is like stagnant at this point. Again, Queen Mandra, she's nowhere to be seen in a way, or there's been no consequence of Saeris' disappearance. And Bellican is just letting Fisher do whatever he wants with Saeris as well, you know? So it's like, what's going on? Like, he's just taking her on a little side quest. I thought, and you think that the plot has more consequence to that, but no. Anyway. And so we meet Taladeus, which is the vampire lord minion. And it turns out that Evelyn is enthralled by Malcolm. There's this whole thing with the vampire hierarchy, because he was one of the first to turn, but also made sure that he's the only one of the oldest. So every other vampire that was turned at that time, he killed him off so he can be like the number one top dog, you know?
Oh my god.
This is all in the past though.
Ruthless. That's ruthless.
Exactly. It's a ruthless world. So yeah, Evelyn had been bitten. To be bitten by Malcolm means that she is enthralled by him indefinitely, and eventually she will either turn or die. So obviously now we've got a little time limit. You know, Fisher has to get the ball rolling. All the while, him and Saeris are, trying to develop their relationship. They love each other. They hate each other. They have their quiet moments, etc., etc. And then, obviously, after that point, it is revealed that Fisher and Saeris are true mates, and that whole thing is revealed. And then Fisher has a big exposition dump about how he's known that she was his true mate from the very beginning. He has been waiting for her for like hundreds of years.
Of course.
His mother was an oracle, which reminds me of Slade, because wasn't his mother an oracle as well?
Yeah, something like that. Oh yeah, she's something.
Listen, Kenzie, alright, hang on. You have to read this book because this seems like just a better version of Guild.
Okay.
Please.
I will get round to it.
Please, I beg you. So his mother was an oracle, although sometimes she would get small details wrong, and she would have drawings in a diary and a journal. But in those drawings, Saeris had pointed ears, and obviously in real life she is a human. But there are also reasonings for that. We will learn later on.
Okay, let's get to it, because I want to talk about what I want to talk about before I forget it. I don't need the details.
But it's where it gets a little funky, though. And then the last 100 pages, alright, so... Turns out, all right, I'll get to the point. All right.
Okay.
So in order to, they save. It's pretty much after this part anyway. So they save Evelyn, but by going through a special Shadow Gate portal. But then Saeris and Lorith and Carrion. They all go through because they all want to save Fisher because he's sacrificing himself for Evelyn, blah, blah, blah. We know how that goes. So they find him, and lo and behold, we have Bellican, Mandra, and Malcolm all in cahoots together. And they're all the dictator leaders of their respective lands and stuff. They call themselves Triumvirate, Triumvirate. Anyway, it's just like a whole thing where three like very powerful people come together, and they are more powerful together than they are separated, I guess.
Okay.
So they're all
The
in
power
cahoots,
three.
pretty much, except in an evil way.
I'm trying to look it up.
A human, a fae, and a fae vampire, blah, blah, blah.
Okay,
so they're
cool.
all in cahoots together. And so this is where there's also just like a huge evil person monologue where Bellican and Malcolm just have fun being like, oh, do we want Fisher to tell the story or should we tell the story? Blah, blah, blah. And the entire time, Fisher was never allowed to explain where he was when he was exiled, etc., because he was in Malcolm's little, I don't know, labyrinth that he created. Because there's this whole thing. Oh my god, kids, you don't even know. But this had to do with that village he burned down.
Okay.
So there's a whole thing. So Malcolm's horde of army back in the day were pillaging this entire place, and Fisher wanted to save the people because that's his job as a high fae, to protect his land and to protect everybody against fucking vampires. Anyway, so he tries to do that, but Bellican was also trying to feed Malcolm an army, so he's trying to let the fae die so they can eventually be turned into vampires, you know, that's like the whole spiel. And so obviously he doesn't want Fisher to succeed in helping eviscerate any potential vampire foot soldiers, etc. So they have a little bargain where they flip a coin, but of course with the fae it's always really tricky. They had a little heads and tails, but it's a leaf or a fish on this special silver coin. And instead of letting it touch the ground, Malcolm caught it. And so like the bargain was kind of never fully fulfilled.
Yeah.
But the vampire horde still ravaged the village anyway. And so now the villagers live in eternal sort of suffering, where they're not dead, but they're like forever like burning, you know?
Oh god.
So it's a whole thing. And so as part of that, Fisher became stuck in Malcolm's labyrinth, and he had to find this coin, because if he found the coin, he can then like free the people of eternal suffering. Okay. So he spent like 100. All right, here's where the math fucked me up a little bit, because in the book he's been exiled for 110 years, and
yes,
that was also, he was in the labyrinth for 110 years. But then Malcolm said it took him 50 years or 55 years to find the center, and then 8 years to find the coin. Because it's a huge fucking labyrinth where the routes change all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, that, for one, didn't make sense to me. I'm like...
But then it took him the rest to get out, I'm assuming.
While he was in the labyrinth, finds the coin, there is a pool of Quicksilver, and then that opened one day, and then he went on through, and that was the day when Saeris opened her Quicksilver pool, and it ties everything together.
Oh.
So that's cool. But anyway, there's a whole confrontation, huge battle ensues. Yeah, they have to run back through the labyrinth to find the coin properly, or again. And then Saeris is sacrificing herself, and then Karen declares he's one of the ancient royal bloodlines who's been disguised as a human for like 1,000 years, and that was a whole thing, and I didn't really appreciate it because he was a nothing character anyway, and then suddenly he had a very important or non-important role, and it pissed me off. Saeris gets brutally injured and severely injured, and she's like passing the fuck out. Fisher comes to rescue her at some point, and then she hears like the Quicksilver talking and churning, and they're like, we want to talk to you. And we're like, what the fuck? And so, but she agrees because she's dying and there's nothing else to do. And in the meanwhile, that vampire lord turned out to be a relatively good guy because he's helping Fisher despite being his enemy. And so he starts the process of turning Saeris because she's dying and like fatally, like there's nothing they can do. And so that's happening, and then she agrees to talk to the Quicksilver, and so she gets tugged by the Quicksilver, I don't know, line, and she ends up in this like little other world. But get this, the other world is where like 3 gods are, and so she has a chat with one of the gods. So one of the gods is named Zareth, and he has decided that Fisher is his like champion, because I don't know, apparently gods have their champions these days, I guess because he's a very elite fae warrior. Anyway, he goes on this spiel about how he's been watching like Fisher and just like the world for a long time. And the analogy is like there's this huge ass tree, and you know some trees get like eroded or narcotic, and that's when you know the gods kind of step in and have to, I don't know, dispose of it. And the analogy is like the branch is like valued of billions of people, or in order to keep the balance of like I suppose good and evil. It's just the whole thing. Anyway, it turns out like their true mateship is it's supposed to work, I think, against the balance. And so he tried to separate them, or separate the timings of her birth, so they would still meet eventually, but I don't know. Actually, another thing about it is very confusing. But anyway, Saeris Saeris was meant to be Fae. Like she was meant to be a part of that world and be like a magic wielding alchemist as she had intended. But Zareth interfered. And because now he's scared of the other gods of interfering with his interference, and that they would separate them, because their story is meant that like one of them is meant to die. So he gives Saeris a choice. She can either die or become something new that the universe won't recognize, and that the universe won't fuck up their true bond stuff. And so she makes the decision that she wants to become something new. And guess what she becomes?
Let me guess, she gets pointed ears.
Okay, and?
She becomes a fully Quicksilver person.
No, that's not a thing, unfortunately. No, she becomes half vampire and half fae.
Oh, I was going to say that. Oh, of course.
Yeah. And then something extra funny. So at the end, everything's...
Wait, and does she get pointed ears?
Yeah, she gets pointed ears. Yeah. She gets the whole shebang. Because Malcolm eventually died, the way the hierarchy works... I don't think there is a true hierarchy, actually, back in their land. But anyway, because they're already there, the vampires recognize Saeris as their queen now. So Saeris is becoming queen of the vampires.
Okay, and does it address how the human queen has been alive?
Now that I think about it, I actually don't think so. I think she is human, but I don't know, must have done something. I don't really remember.
Cool.
Also, yeah, as I said earlier, you know how they had the coin flip that was tricked and never fully occurred? Well, Saeris found the coin and she did the flip, and then that bargain then became fulfilled, and then the people of that Fae village were released and turned to ash, and then that whole village was just like became crumbling to the ground.
Oh, okay.
So cool. That was all good in that regard. I probably explained this really poorly.
That's okay. All right. Shall I talk about my rant?
All right. Talk about your rant.
Okay. This is the thing. I think also this is going to be like a long episode as well.
That's anyway, okay.
So this is the thing these days, in this microwave era of books.
Microwave?
I'm feeling so burnt out by fantasy because I feel like, and I think we've touched on this before, but I think that everything, like even the amount of times you said, oh, this has reminded me of this has reminded me of this has reminded me of this, and it's getting to a point where it's like it's not just reminding me of, you know, like one book reminds me of a different fantasy book. It's just a legitimate like copy and paste, just change some sort of elements, and it's this tropification of books and this like BookTok sensationalization of books as well, because like, again, we're marketing books as tropes instead of plots. So I feel like quality is suffering because of quantity, because it's kind of like publishers are saying, okay, well, as long as you've got enemies to lovers, as long as you've got like forced mates or whatever, like, or like true mates, as long as you've got this, then it doesn't really matter. And especially this, you know, you're like, oh, has it got smut kind of question or whatever. Like a lot of people are sacrificing, again, good plot for just like, oh, well, I can oversee it because it's smutty. And I think back to, you know, like years ago when fantasy, like when we were growing up with fantasy, it's like I can think of Harry Potter, I can think of the Mortal Instruments, I can think of Divergent, Hunger Games, and they were all fantasy. And, you know, some of them were like dystopian, but they all had varying degrees of fantasy elements. You know, like Harry Potter was magic, mortal instruments was sort of like magic, but it was like runes and things.
It was
like
more
that,
demons,
and vampires and demons. Yeah, and then Divergent was dystopian, factions, and Hunger Games was dystopian, but like fight for the death and factions. But they all had their kind of individual spin on things, and I wouldn't read the Hunger Games and be like, oh my god, this reminds me of Harry Potter. The only thing that would sort of be similar across the genres, across the series is that they've got one special chosen person, and maybe like a love triangle, but so I'm just kind of getting sick of this tropification.
Oh, for sure,
books,
yeah.
Because it feels like I'm like I'm crunching away, spitting like spit bucket, and then I go take another bite, and like that's the next series. But it's the same thing. I'm just reading the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, tropes are meant to be just story elements that you recognize, and nothing that should be a marketing ploy.
Which is why I'm excited, because I know that we do have some other fantasy books coming up, but also like we'll be reading like The Silent Patient. Like we're going to be going into like different genres and stuff. And sorry, just to touch on what you were going to say, that tropes are just meant to be things, like I'm happy to read a book and just organically come across, it happened to have a one bed scene, they were mates, it happened to have an enemies to lovers elements. I don't want to be sold a book based on that. I don't need that to be the advertising for me. I just want to come across it and be pleasantly surprised. Like I'd rather a good plot with these tropes included, instead of being like advertised as these tropes and then here's a half-assed plot to go with it.
Enemies to lovers is just like a description of your book.
It's like when the man finally sees like his girl best friend as like pretty.
Like that like shot of realization. Or when I don't know, there's an argument and they have to apologize and they're running through the rain, like those sorts of things. Like they're tropes and they're commonly used. But enemies to lovers, that's just like a character description, or just a description in itself of what's going to happen. And we've lost the art of being surprised.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to know if there's going to be an enemies to lovers, because the first person that we get introduced to who is seemingly a bad guy, that's going to be a love interest.
Yeah. Or as soon as you say, enemies to lovers or whatever, it's like, okay, well then I know that if they're like the first love interest, if they're a good guy, I know that they're not going to last. Yeah. It's like, no, I want to be surprised when the first love interest dies or turns out to be a dick or...
Yeah. Or maybe they don't have a love interest, because now, especially books these days and new books, it's all hell-bent on the romantasy element. Like, give me something different, please. But I didn't expect Quicksilver to be this sort of way. I knew it was a Fae book, but not to this degree. And I didn't expect there to be vampires as well incorporated into that.
Again, it just feels like with this book, the way you explain, like telling me, like it just feels like they thought of every fantasy element and they're like, you know what? I'm going to use it all. It's like, no, like keep it simple, stupid. Again, quality over quantity.
But I think she also tried to add a bit of a different element to the Fae, because originally the Fae would bite and suck blood or feed on blood back in the day. But, because of the blood curse, they lost that sort of blood sense, or they don't need to drink blood to survive, and they can only do it for pleasure if they wanted to. And of course, biting in that sort of way is inherently a sexual experience for both of them. But it just seemed like from Blood and Ash, and a lot of Guild I recognised, the Played Prisoner series, and even Akatar to a degree, because there are like a summer court and a winter court and autumn courts and stuff like that. Very seasonal themes. And I'm just getting tired of the saturation.
Yes. Should we go to the stars that listen?
I'm just going to see if there's anything else I need to like really talk about.
Okay.
But in my mind, as I was reading, I'm just thinking that this is far better than Guild, but I could recognize so many like story elements from everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a long book. It's 600 odd pages too.
Wow.
And I felt like there was a lot of traveling as well, and just bouncing around to places. But that's how, I guess, Saeris and Fisher were developing their character. They were sharing things about each other, being vulnerable in those moments, of course. But then, yeah, at the same time, we didn't get to see Hayden again, her brother. She did show some concern for him, but then it got to a point where she would rather be with Fisher, and she wanted to save him, so it's like, all right, just forget where you came from. But I suppose there's going to be more books to this as well, because this is only book 1.
Yeah, to start off on a 600-pager, though, like...
I mean, I feel like this could have been a standalone, maybe. Because otherwise, I feel like it's going to be like Poppy in From Blood and Ash, where every book she's going to gain some sort of extra power. Because already she was just like a human who was able to have a taste for ancient Fae magic and become a quote-unquote alchemist. Or actually, no, that's what they're called, an alchemist, her particular magic wielding. And then now, but she gets the benefit of being a Fae and gets the benefit of being a vampire. Like, that's a lot to give to a random human girl. But she deserves it, I guess. She's done well to earn her position. I'm just trying to remember the third act breakup, if there was one. I don't quite remember, actually, but it was inconsequential because they're true mates and they love each other and all is well in the world. And yeah, there was also an introduction to some witches, and yeah, we meet Isabel or something, and they help Evelaine's enthrallment, but like that's sort of off screen or just briefly written over that she'll eventually wake up and will be fine. You know, all is well. Fantastic. There's no stakes, of course, only the evil people.
Well, I was going to say, because you said that Malcolm died, I was like, I was thinking that, well, if he died, then surely that would break the enthrallment.
Oh yeah, that would also assist, yeah, for sure. And then now, yeah, Belkin and Mandra, like, we don't know what they're up to. They're probably in hiding somewhere or licking their wounds. But yeah, it's definitely not over. Or to just open some portals, you know. Too much trouble. But obviously with Saeris' power, she can wield swords and convince the Quicksilver to channel old ancient magic, because now that we know it's connected to wherever the gods are, and the gods, you know, will grant that magic if they so to desire. Yeah. That's it, I guess. Sorry for explaining it poorly.
No, that's okay. I understood what was going on. I just can't believe how much was going on.
It was a lot, dude. A lot.
Okay. Anyway, we're going to The Stars That Listen. The Stars That Listen is a segment we do at the end of our podcast where we find a 1-star review and a 5-star review that we agree with or want to fight with. Usually we have a couple because it's fun, and we always start on the 1-star because we like to end on a positive note. Would you like me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. D&F 30%. Another viral BookTok book doesn't live up to the hype for me. Shock. So I feel like that would have been me.
Yeah. Well, you're on page 1.
And then another D&F. Did I read the same book that everyone is raving about? It was underwhelming. The female main character and her brother are insufferable, and she is annoying.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Oh, and then I have another, sorry, I feel so bad for talented fantasy authors because how is this popular? The dialogue and writing is so derogatory millennial.
Yeah, in a way. I did enjoy the writing, though, but, yeah, it's just, when re-explaining it back, it just seems a little lost. Anyway, my first 1-star review, I didn't realize this was a bigger comment, but I'll read what it says, because yeah, this also happened in the book. Anyway, did someone say plot holes? Boring? Snooze fest? Fae who know about cliff notes? Yes, a Fae person actually mentioned the word cliff notes in the sense of providing notes on things. Like, how is that allowed in a fantasy world? I audibly was like, oh fucking no. Why would you do this? Alrighty. And my proper 1-star review, the beginning started out very strong and intriguing, but for some reason, the second she met the MMC, it went downhill for me. I had no idea why the book was 600 pages. I skipped half of it and went to the end. No, but here's another thing really quickly. Yeah, it turns out this story is really meant to be about Saeris, right? But as soon as she entered the Fae world, it really became Fisher's story, and had to deal with Fisher's issues and his problems, and problems with his kingdoms, wars and stuff. Yeah. She was really just a tool in order to have special swords and to reopen
So
the
she was a
portals.
manic pixie dream girl.
Pretty much. She really was just like a device to help Fisher, but
That's so disappointing.
but they happened to fall in love on the way. But that's just how I saw it, because it really felt like Slade with Oren, where he just took her around everywhere and she really didn't really do anything, but she practiced magic. That's exactly what like Saeris was like. When they went traveling, she was practicing her alchemist work, and Fisher would go away for days on end doing errands and stuff, and she would just stay at camp or in his room just hanging out. Like, she didn't really feel like a huge heroine lead, which also, to be fair, but there's that a fair assessment, because she is not in her human world. She has no idea what the fuck's going on. She has to follow this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really, that strikes me as well now, because a lot of these books, even with ACOTAR, like, Rhys just takes Feyre out and about everywhere. Where's the autonomy?
I think the thing, with ACOTAR, though, like, again, like, Rhys asked, he's like, you can stay or you can come. Like, that was always the thing. He's like, you can come with me. Like, I will not force you to stay behind, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I completely forgot to mention, almost, a part of their bargain was that she will do whatever she needed to do to help him, and he would use it against her, and a part of that sort of bargain bond is, through the bond, you can compel people to do what you want to do. And that happened a few times. Which sucked, but it was for the better good, because she was being the heroine trying to get herself into trouble, but she had to stay behind anyway. Anyway, that was the whole thing. All right.
My 5-star, I have 2. I have 1. Excuse me, I had the best time with this, the banter, the plot, the magic. I loved it. At times I felt like the relationship moved a little too fast, flipped a little too quickly, but I was having so much fun, I just overlooked it. The ending was wild, and I can't wait to see what happens next. And then I have another one, which I just did because it's in French. So it says, Nouveau fave, merci la hype booktok, neige plus enemies to lovers plus petite animal mignon plus dark fantasy. So I know that the first bit says, my new favourite, thank you, booktok. But I don't know what neige means.
I was about to say, Kenzie showing off with her French knowledge. Jesus.
And I know that petite obviously is small, so
yep, I knew that. It reminds me of that meme you sent me. What is it, like, in a French accent? Yesterday I had a coffee and a croissant.
I had too much coffee and too much croissant, so I had how you say, a panic attack.
Yeah, I love it. It always makes me smile, that one.
Okay, so neige is snow. So snow plus enemies to lovers. Plus
snow plus enemy. Oh yeah. So yeah, the Fey world is snow and cold, and obviously the contrast of being the human world being a desert.
Animal mignon is cute little animal.
Oh yeah, there was a little fox companion. I skipped over a lot of that because I really didn't care the fact that they had a winter fox as a pet.
So I only know un petit français. So
a small amount of French? Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes.
I would not mind trying to learn French, but it'd be hard.
It's hard.
Alright, and my 5-star review. Loved this book. Gripping right from the first
chapter.
Also,
hang on. Sorry, I apologise to anyone who's French that I just absolutely butchered your language, but...
No, she doesn't care. Alright, love this book. Gripping right from the first chapter. Reminiscent of Feasand in some ways. Grittier in others. I appreciated the main character was really dynamic and strong from the get-go. Development was excellent and well-rounded for lots of characters. Loved the use of sarcasm and comedy in dialogue. Softer parts felt true and pulled at my heartstrings. This was a really enjoyable read and I couldn't put it down. Good for you. Alrighty, and that concludes this episode of Letterboxd Book Club. Is there anything else you just want to say, Kenzie?
No.
That's it.
This book. Yeah, I couldn't.
Alright, that's fair.
I knew it was going to be silly, and it was, by the sounds of it, so...
But hey, at least she put in a bloody pronunciation guide. Otherwise, it would just be like a stock standard fantasy book where everything is overwhelming the first 5 chapters, and then you just get on with it, and then it all makes sense at the end.
This is true. Oh, well, thank you everybody for listening to Claire tell me all about this book and for me just going on little rants here and there. This makes up for me telling Claire all about my fanfics. I promise I will read the next book. I think I want to move our schedule around a little bit because I want to read The Silent Patient next. find us on Instagram at letterbox_book_club from there. Our link tree is in the bio, where you'll find us in all the places: Spotify, YouTube, RIP, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud if you're old school, and TikTok. And that's all. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Don't fall into any fey portals now, you hear?
Bye.
Bye.